we're going to tell the story of the golden calf. Before we do that, I'm going to talk through a little bit of the timeline. So we're just going to have a quick look at the timeline of the Israelites, but it's not the whole timeline, okay? We're going to just go for the context bit. So we've got, at the start of our timeline, the Israelites have been enslaved to Pharaoh, and they cry out to God, and God hears them, and he sends them Moses, okay? And then we have the 10 plagues. So I need a little bit of help here. I want you to name all the 10 plagues. I've got them in a list in front of me because I know that I can't name them all just off the top of my head like this in front of you all. But shout me out some 10 plagues. Frogs, yes. Locusts, boils, blood, flies, darkness. Thank you for counting, because Sorry? Hail, yes. Deadly hail. Boys, yes. Death of the firstborn boy. How are we doing? 8. You've still got 2. Oh. What about the livestock? Forgotten about the livestock. And we had that one. Did we have gnats and lice? Like the gnats thing? I'm not sure we had the gnats. Did we? There we go. Okay, so there's your 10. Okay, and then, so we had the 10 plagues, and they get they get sent out of Egypt by Pharaoh. He sends them away. And then they have the pillars of the cloud and the fire. God provides them with pillars to follow through the day, of cloud, and pillar of fire to follow at night, so that they know the direction to go in. And then the Egyptians decide to come after them. And we have the crossing of the Red Sea, where God splits the Red Sea and lets the Israelites through. And when the Egyptians follow them, he brings the sea back over the Egyptians. And then the Israelites have a bit of a whinge because they haven't got any food. And they grumble, and God provides the Israelites with manna, a bit like bread, that comes down in the morning and is there on the floor for them. And then he also provides quails for them to eat at night. And then we have God providing water. So yeah, they have another grumble. The Israelites have another grumble because they're thirsty, and God provides water from the rock. I know this happens a couple of times, but he provides them with water to drink in the wilderness. And then we get to the point where the Israelites meet with God at Mount Sinai. And God tells them his 10 commandments, and he gives them his laws. Now, I'm not saying the one I've included is the most important, but it's important to today's story. Okay? So, you shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make for yourselves gods of gold. And the Israelites follow it by saying, everything the Lord has said we will do. Okay? I want you all to just say that with me, okay? Everything the Lord has said we will do. So Moses goes away for 40 days and 40 nights. He goes up the mountain, and God speaks to him and gives him all the laws, and he gives him the tablets. And whilst he's gone, the Israelites ask for a god to worship. And then they falsely worship it as the God who brought them out of Israel. I find this a really, really hard story because I can't get my head around where the Israelites are at. They've just seen God do all those amazing things we saw on the timeline. And they still have a pillar of cloud in the day and a pillar of fire at night that's there. They know God is there. The quail and the manna are still coming every day. And yet, they go to Aaron and say, we need something to worship. Give us something. And I think sometimes we have a little bit of a go at Aaron, and we feel that he's the guilty party here because he made them the calf. But the people are once again grumbling at God. They do like to grumble. The Israelites, if you watch it, they grumble again and again and again at God, all the way through, and tell him that it would be better if they'd lived in Egypt under the slavery. It'd be much better to be there than in their freedom with the provision of God with them. So God wants to destroy the Israelites. After they make their idol, he tells Moses that he wants to destroy them. But Moses seeks the favor of the Lord on behalf of the Israelites and reminds God of this promise. Remember your servants Abraham and Isaac and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. And it says in Exodus 32, then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster that he'd threatened. I want to now think about times that God's provided for you. Because the Israelites had seen God provide time and time and time again, and yet they still struggled to trust him. They still struggled to believe that he would continue to be there. And I've asked a couple of people to come and share. So I'm just going to ask Ruth and Roanna if you just come and move to the front row so that you can come up. And Ruth's going to come and share first, and then Roanna's going to share about times that God has provided for them. So Ruth, if you come first.
God has provided for us many, many times in different ways. A phone call, a meal, a letter, gardening, money, meeting up for coffee, a text, flowers, food left on the doorstep, washing and ironing, clothes, just meeting someone in the street, music. One time, I met Brenda, Faith's mum, in Sainsbury's, and she just gave me a big hug and talked to me about Jesus. When we had very little money, I found 5p in my pocket. I never keep money in my pocket. And in the greengrocers that used to be on Main Street, there was a lemon reduced to 5p. And I was able to make a pudding for the family. Another time, just before we moved, it was a Sunday night, and I thought I heard a knock at the door about 8:30. A few days before, I had made a phone call to a lady who I thought might be able to help us to find a roofer, because we needed some urgent work done on our roof. Before we moved, this was agreed with the people who were buying our house. And there was this man, and he could do the work within the time frame, and the sale could proceed, and the timing was crucial. Maybe most of the things I've mentioned seem very ordinary and no big deal, but the timing, the love, the kindness, the generosity have made me realize that God knows my needs and that of our family. And usually he uses people to provide them. And often the people who provided and who met our needs were in this church. God is faithful and he's to be trusted.
How awesome is that? Roanna, come on up. Roanna's going to just share an experience where God has provided for her, actually very recently. But I wanted actually for the young people and the children to hear from someone a bit younger, because God is also providing for you guys too.
So I'm sure there's many times as well of this, but there were a few years ago, I was kind of struggling a bit, and it was particularly socially, and I didn't really feel I had any friends really. And then I came to New Day with Cockermouth because no one from Carlisle was going, and God provided there. He gave me some great friends, and yeah.
He has, and it's so lovely because he hasn't just provided Roanna with great friends, he's provided her friends with a Roanna, who's a great friend too. And it's just so lovely to see this group of young people that are supporting and loving and caring for each other. It's really good. So, it's your turn now. Someone in your area has some post-it notes. They're going to give you a post-it note and a pen, and I just want you to think of a time when God's provided for you. It might be something really small. It might be like what Ruth was talking about. It might be that somebody gave you a hug or happened to ring you at a time when you were struggling or just feeling a bit down. It might be that someone gave you a Bible verse you really needed. It might be something a lot bigger. It might be that you really needed a hospital appointment and you prayed about it and it just happened and you didn't expect it. But yeah, I want you to write something down on your post-it note, and then there's a blue bit of paper there and a pink one there, and then on the stage there's one as well somewhere. Can you stick your post-it notes on them after you've written it? Thank you. It's lovely, isn't it, to see all the coloured post-it notes on the sheets. And see all the different ways. And later you'll be able to go and have a look at them on your way out. I won't take them down straight away. So I want to point out two things that I think we can learn from the golden calf story. I think the first thing that it teaches us is that we shouldn't be worshipping idols. That actually it teaches us about God's anger about worshipping idols, his anger towards the Israelites, because they didn't just turn away from him, they actually chose to worship something for what he'd actually done. They worshipped their golden calf because they were saying that it led them out of Egypt. It wasn't the golden calf at all that did that. So I want us to think about what golden calves we might have in our lives. For some of us, it might be career, or it might be school. I think often for us, it's things that push God out of the way. I think often we don't put calves up like the Israelites did. I don't think we go, I'm going to put a calf there. I'm going to create a calf for me to worship that's different to God. I don't think that's how we do it. I think what happens is maybe work or schoolwork or other things, family, might be church. That things take over and they kind of push God out, and instead we're thinking about those things instead. I've got down on my list Roger. It might be that actually there is another Christian that you look to and think, I want to be just like them. They seem to have it all right. They're praying really well, and they're doing this really well, and they worship really well, and they come to the front and they share things really well, and I want to be just like them. And actually that pushes out Jesus from that equation, because actually they're worshipping, the person you're looking to is worshipping Jesus. And that's what you need to be doing, to be in the same place they are and in your relationship with Jesus, kind of the same depth as they are. It might be something like a sports team that's got in the way. I went to see Liverpool a few weeks at Anfield, and it's an interesting thing when everybody starts singing. I can see why it'd be really easy to worship a sports team. But are there golden calves that you've got in your lives? Are there things that we're worshipping that aren't of God? Are there things we're trusting? We want them to provide for us instead of God. And how easy is it for us to worship other things? There's a bit in 1 Corinthians where Paul warns us about this, and actually he is talking about the story we've looked at. He's talking about the Israelites, and he says this: "These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of the ages has come. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you do not fall. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. So when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Therefore, my dear friends, flee from idolatry." I think that's such an encouragement. I think Paul writing about that is a real encouragement for the times that we do struggle and we do find that we're falling away, that actually Paul's written about it and he's given us an encouragement and he's explained that God will provide a way out for us when we're tempted. He won't let us be tempted beyond what we can bear. The second thing that I think the golden calf story teaches us is that we need to trust God to provide for us, and we need to thank him for his provision. The Israelites were so good at grumbling. They did love a good grumble, and if you read through their story, they do it over and over and over again. But how good are we at trusting God for his provision? Is he the first place we go when we're in need? Or is he the last place we go? Is he the last resort when we've tried all the other avenues? And this is one I'm a bit good at. I start with prayer, and then when the provision doesn't come, I begin to grumble. I get a bit grumpy. And it's something I'm working on. But one of the things that I've realised is that actually the best way to stop grumbling is to thank God. To look at all the things we've got on the walls, all the things that God has done for us. And if we're struggling there, then we need to look to Jesus. Because God provided us with his son Jesus to teach us, guide us, and then ultimately die for us so that we could be forgiven. And I just want to read, I was given this book, and it's called In the Lord I Take Refuge. It's a Dane Ortland, and every day you have a different psalm to read, and then he just explains it a little bit. And I was reading it this morning, and I'm really pleased I was reading it this morning because I wasn't totally sure how I was going to finish this morning. And I was reading Psalm 36, and then Dane Ortland writes this. And he's writing, the psalm itself talks about all the things that God does for us. He talks about his faithfulness and his righteousness and his judgments as well. And so Dane writes this: where do we today discover these benefits? To be sure, as David did, in God himself. Yet for us, there is an even deeper, sharper awareness of how to access these benefits in God. We do so in union with Christ. He himself is our protection. I am the good shepherd, from John 10, verse 11. He is our subsistence. I am the bread of life, from John 6, verse 35. He is our vitality. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly, John 10, verse 10. He is our illumination. I am the light of the world, John 8, verse 12. If we are struggling to find those thank yous, a great place to go is the Bible and to Scripture. So we're going to finish, I think, really by praising God, for thanking him. Roger's got just a few of the post-it notes. I asked him just to collect a handful for me because I can't read them all out. There's too many. So here's just some of them. God's provision, God and church. A great group of friends at school who disciple each other towards Jesus. Someone to talk to. Hugs when I've needed a friend. God provided a tax refund at the time I really needed some help. God provided an oven when we had no money. And toys. God's provided toys too. So I'm going to hand back to the worship band, and they're going to lead us in just a song for us to praise God and thank him for all that provision that we've got around the room on the boards. And I would say this, before you leave, I'd go and have a look at all the different post-it notes and all the things that God has provided for the people in our church as an encouragement.
Splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, Let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and I